ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, we've allocated some time for questions. Do we have someone in the ballroom?
My name is Hans Mortel, and I'm a member of several clubs. What I resent bitterly is the government telling me what I can do with my hard-earned money. It is whether I spend it or save it or donate it or burn it. It's none of the government's business. And it is about time that the federal government does not give in to blackmail for that mad Tasmanian and tells Mr. Wilkie to tear up his ridiculous proposal and flush it down the drain. Thank you.
Okay, Hans, thank you very much indeed. I'll take a question now from within this room. If someone has a question, please make your way to the microphone. Do we have a question lined up, ready to go?
To Tony and Daryl, will you tell us how much money you believe that online gambling will actually take up once this pre-commitment is in force? And will you two guarantee that you will reverse the community the same amount of money that the clubs now spend on community activities?
Okay. That was asked about Tony and Daryl. Tony, if you want to go first.
Thanks, Steve. First of all, online gambling is growing regardless of this. And how we handle online gambling is an extraordinarily difficult thing. Incredibly difficult. No. Please understand that the most recent case I dealt with was actually an online gambling one. Now, the amount of money that is going down the drain there, and how quickly some people are losing everything is extraordinary. It's still at this point much smaller, but it is growing at a rate of knots. The thing that we've done so far on that, some of you would have seen the football coverage that's driving you mad for a period where they started placing the odds at every single play and announcing them during the commentary. That is now ending. So there's some things where we've found ways. Steve has asked about the translation between. No, please, that was the last half of the question. Steve's asked me to answer about how much will go across to online gambling. I'm saying on that is growing regardless of this. Translation between people shifting from pokies to online has not actually been high. It's been coming from other areas, particularly young people. On the issue of the continued work of clubs, if we get this right, if all we take out is the problem gambling, then that's something that clubs are saying they want to take out as well. If that's what is hit, then in terms of what goes to the community, you don't get a difference because clubs are telling us that they don't want problem gambling to be part of their operations anyway.
Sir, if you could tell us your name and be specific about who you're asking the question to.
Jim McMaster, Bankstown Sports Club. I asked the three Labor members sitting at the council, at the table there, why there is 1 million Australian soldiers and women overseas dead, and you're trying to bring in a law that they fought for freedom and liberty.
Jace, I have a question on the same, virtually on the same line as that. My name's Bruce Pauly, I'm chairman of the Bankstown RSL. I'm a serviceman, and this gentleman here is a serviceman, Mr. Wilkie. And I certainly won't put down another serviceman. But my legacy is, being a member of an RSL club, a return service club, is to continue the work of the servicemen who started our organisation, which were World War I and World War II diggers. All the World War I guys are gone. They can't speak for themselves. But how is the Labor Party what are they going to do in 2014 when this legislation is due to come in, when the RSL clubs like Bankstown, my club won't survive under mandatory pre-commitment? What is the Labor Party going to say to the servicemen of this country they've closed down their RSLs, the organisations they started in 1928 at Bankstown.
Okay. Jason?
I take that question very seriously. My current job is I'm the Minister for Defence Materiel, which means that my job is to make sure that the soldiers that are in Afghanistan have the equipment they need to keep them safe. That's not an easy thing. I was in Afghanistan last week. I see what happens to them all the time. I know that 28 Australian soldiers have been killed there. So I do take that very seriously. I know Bruce very well. He's a Vietnam veteran. I sat down with Bruce today and Bill Shorten, the Assistant Treasurer, to talk about these issues. As I said before, I think that this needs to be as simple as it possibly can, so that people like Jim that want to drop $50 in the pokies on the way to La Piazza can do it and not feel like they're being given something difficult, an obstacle in their way from just having a bit of fun. I also think that we need to make this a system that ensures that our clubs still do what they do today, and that is make our communities tick. Our communities don't work, particularly in a place like Bankstown. I can't speak for other parts of Sydney or other parts of the country, but Bankstown doesn't work without Bankstown Sports Club or Bankstown RSL. It's very important to our local community. And I want to make sure that whatever the government does, it ensures that not only does Bankstown RSL continue to exist and continue to do the very good work that it does now, but it continues to thrive and can continue to put money into services like Terry Madden's aged care service. That's my motivation in being here tonight and in making sure that whatever the government does ensures that our clubs not only survive but continue to support our local community.
Okay, we'll go back upstairs for one more.
For the Labor federal MPs, my name's Grace Farber. I know a few of the MPs up there at the moment, and I'm President of Autism Advisory and Support Service, which is a charity that is run by volunteers. We have asked the government for money on many occasions, and sadly we've been knocked back. Jason, you would know this personally. We've gone to the clubs and we've always been given whatever we wanted. My question is more, wouldn't gambling be more of a mental health issue? And therefore, wouldn't it be better to put money into mental health instead of taking money from the clubs?
Okay, that was the question. Who'd like to take that? Tony? Jason?
You want me to do it again?
Oh, I mean it, yeah? Jesus.
Oh, we're going to have interlopers, are we, from Queensland asking questions? Is that the backdoor method, is it, Steve? I'm here for locals, not for outsiders.
Wait a minute, wait, in fairness...
In relation to that lady, no, I'm looking at the next question here. I'm not going to be set up with members from Queensland of the Liberal Party who have flown down here specifically to take political points. In relation to all these issues, I don't believe it's the intention of the government. And I know, as I said, all I can talk about is in relation to my club. You mightn't want to hear it, but 7 years ago, we got a wake-up call in relation to pokies, and we've been going on a diversification program which has resulted in 100 extra jobs, another 400 in the future, and in relation to a drop to a third of what our levels were in relation to reliance on poker machines. It's all non-gaming, and it will enable us as a club to continue the charitable work that we do. And so, you know, I think that's the intent of the government. It's not the intent to do as you said. In relation to mental health, I agree with you. Money should be spent on mental health, and the government's committed to that. We've got a mental health package which, as I understand it, is $2 billion. So let's get a few facts on the table.
If you want
Craig,
statistics, I can give you statistics. A child is born with autism every 7 minutes, and yet where is the funding for them? And yet you're looking at problem gamblers as if they are a majority in here. It's not. Get counsellors for them, get better equipment for them, but don't take money out of the clubs where it could be put better back into the community. The government never gives us any money, and yet we go to the clubs and we get the money from them because it is a huge problem. Problem gambling does cause a problem to the community, but not as much as other things like disabilities and mental health. So I think we've got to get our facts right there too.
Craig Kelly.
Grace, you're 100% correct.
Thanks,
Our government we do not have an unlimited pot of money to spend. Now, we've seen palpable waste by this government. Likewise, our clubs do not have unlimited money to spend. If they're forced to spend $95 million to bring in this technology, that means $95 million less they're going to have to give to all these community organisations. And that is simply a shocking waste of resources. And at the end of the day, it's kids with autism, it's our aged, it's people that need care in our hospitals. They are the ones that are going to suffer because of this.
Okay. Now, as Daryl mentioned, Stephen Chobo, the member for Moncrief, is with us.
In
Steve,
Queensland.
do I... Correct? I presume you have a question to ask?
I'll pay that. He's not a bad bloke either. So,
Well, as has been revealed, I am a federal MP, and I was actually down to speak this evening.
oh, were you?
But I understand that Daryl, Jason and Tony said that they wouldn't speak if I did. So I'm here now.
You see,
I'm here now in my private capacity, and the reason, Daryl, that
that's
I'm
good.
here...
So you're a Queensland local, are you? How many other Queenslanders are here, Steve?
Daryl, you had your 5 minutes. I've just got a question. And actually, my question is to Tony Burke. My question is to Tony Burke as one of Julia Gillard's cabinet ministers. But the reason mandatory pre-commitment won't work is because problem gamblers, of which I know every single person in this room is concerned about, every single one. The reason it won't work is because it puts the problem gambler in charge of deciding how much money they spend when clearly they're already irrational when it comes to their spending. That's why this won't work. And to answer directly your question, Daryl, the reason I'm here is because you three aren't listening to your constituents, and I am. Now,
The question, please, Stephen.
the question is this.
Why doesn't Tony Abbott put you on his front bench?
Daryl, you know, look, if
You deserve to.
I'll just make one point in rebuttal to that. If Daryl's serious about not having a conflict of interest, then abstain. Abstain from the vote, Daryl. Abstain. But to get to my question to Tony...
Let me answer that because it needs to be answered. I took the clerk. Let me answer it because I don't want it left unsaid. I've taken the clerk's advice, and what I'm doing is not a conflict of interest and is able to be done. I don't have to abstain to avoid a conflict of interest in that regard.
So my question...
Okay, let's calm down, folks. Stephen has the floor. The last question to Tony Burke.
My question to Tony Burke is this. Given only a matter of weeks ago, we saw in the Labor caucus a revolt from Labor caucus members over the issues of cows. And we saw Labor members stand up against the Prime Minister for their constituents over the issue of cows. My question is this to you, Tony. Will you undertake to stand up for your constituency, to start a caucus revolt, and to stop treating people here like mugs and saying there might be a trial? Your policy is not for a trial, it's to introduce it. You're introducing legislation, so my question is this. Will you stand up, start a revolt, and say to the Prime Minister, she's got this wrong, and you're going to stand by your community?
Okay, Tony Burke.
I will be standing by every member of my community, including... No. Including... Because the people who are burnt by problem gambling are in my community too. And can I tell you, it's one thing to say, oh, how many are there? But when you have someone in front of you who has just discovered that their husband has blown their entire life savings, and they've only discovered that the problem is there after the money has gone. If I then say back to that person, oh, well, the money's gone, we're not going to do anything to avoid that sort of thing in the future, that is not standing up for the community. We need to find a way that can look after the people who I'm talking about there and still deliver the community outcome for the clubs. We need to find a way of being able to do that. But make no mistake, there is no easy, let's just keep everything as it is, because that involves people being hurt too. And we will work this through. The reason I mentioned a trial is because that is government policy, but we haven't been able to get the clubs to agree to be able to conduct one somewhere yet. So make no mistake, it is in the interests of this community to have strong, viable clubs that look after community groups, that look after sporting organisations. And it is also in the interests of this community to make sure, it is also in the interests of this community to make sure that in the future there'll never be none. But at least if we can have fewer people who see the family challenges and breakups and loss of income that happens from problem gambling, then that's the right thing to do by this part of Sydney as well.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your questions. We don't have time for more questions, but Anthony Ball,
Tony,
in response.
Tony, we have said that we are happy to have a trial anytime, anywhere, to see if mandatory pre-commitment is going to work. And I would say to you, take that back to Jenny Macklin and the Prime Minister. We will find clubs to run a proper trial.
That's fantastic.
But do you know what? Andrew Wilkie does not want a trial. He wants this to happen as soon as possible.
No, we want a trial. That is fantastic. If you're offering that...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you've been a tremendous audience. Considering the climate of this debate, I thank you all, especially those of you up in the ballroom and in the function rooms on the first floor who couldn't be with us. Give them a big hand for joining in. All 2,632 of you. And how about a hand for our panel who handled your questions with alacrity. On behalf of Bankstown Sports, everybody, we thank you very much indeed. The job is ahead of you. Thanks for being a great crowd. I'll see you next time.